Hello, everybody. Welcome back into the Vanda Studios. I'm Katie Florio, as always, joined by Tariq El-Bashir. We hope you had a wonderful holiday with your friends and family, and welcome now to a new year, 2026. Tariq, can you believe it already? Time's flying.
It goes so fast, as Alex Ovechkin always says. Times fly.
Time's flying when you're having fun, and let's say the Capitals have certainly had a lot of fun over the course of the 2025 calendar year. A lot to look forward to throughout this second half of the season. But first, we want to reflect back on what was such a historic year for the Capitals. And Tariq, we could spend all day alone on just the Great Eight chase, which of course we will get to, but there was plenty of other exciting things for the Capitals last season. A record season on the ice, the way over 10 guys' career years, but it was also 50 years for the Capitals, Capitals history too. And so before we even talk numbers and things like that, we have to mention just all the fun and festivities that surrounded 50 years of Capitals hockey and all the different eras and alumni that were brought in.
Yeah, I thought the year was really cool because of all the things that were going on. Like you said, the alumni being there, the different themed nights, the era nights that they had throughout the season. I know a number of times when I went down to see people in the stands, I stopped at those really cool displays and went back and looked at all the history that this franchise has had. I mean, so many good players have come through the doors here. And, you know, we talk about Alex Ovechkin, obviously. But you remember there were guys that came before him that really laid the foundation for how many wins and how much sustained success this franchise has had over the years. You know, Peter Bondra, Ole Kolzig, the list goes on and on. I mean, Dale Hunter, you know, Kevin Hatchard, so many great players. Players from my childhood. I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, so I've been watching these guys. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I would say my fanhood began sometime in like the early 80s, and it was just really cool to see all those guys back celebrating 50 years.
And it wasn't just at games. As you know, you and I both cover practice every single day, and credit to Cap's marketing staff, everyone who was involved in all of the activities. They had so many days where those alum would just simply come in, they'd have coffee, bagels, things like that, and you could tell that it wasn't just getting recognized pregame that those guys appreciated, but it was the camaraderie, just hanging around a rink again, telling old stories, things like that.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And, you know, again, these were some of my childhood idols. I mean, guys that I've interviewed over the years, I've seen them around, you know, Rod Langway's around a lot, but, you know, to see them in the building in the 50th anniversary season, and not only just getting to chat with them, but watching them chat with each other, you know, and kind of catch up on old times, that was really, really special. I know that, you know, again, being a DC native and a Caps fan most of my life, you know, I know no Caps fan around here is ever going to forget what happened in 2025.
Not which one you're talking about, because there were a lot of different things that we could talk about. Of course, the Great Eight chase was headlining all of it, but again, Alex Ovechkin, incredible year, incredible milestone. But while all of those things were happening off of the ice, all of the activities, there was a lot of fun going on the ice too. 12 different skaters had career years last year. Logan Thompson as well, 31 wins, career high in wins for him. It seemed like every single night a new guy was accomplishing a new record. And when you think back to last year's regular season, it really seemed like they were fueling one another every single night.
Yeah, without a doubt. I feel like there were a number of factors that led to a dozen different skaters having career years. I think number one, the players knew the importance of the year, right? I mean, 50th anniversary, but also Alex Ovechkin's pursuit. Everyone wanted to be a part of that and really show their best and put their best foot forward. And I think Spencer Carberry, you know, he had been around for more than a year now. Guys were getting comfortable with him. You know, he has such great communication skills, and we're going to talk about Spencer Carberry a little more later in the show, but you know, it's not by accident or coincidence that so many players, including players who were brand new to the Capitals, like a Jacob Chychrun and Pierre-Luc Dubois, those guys, Brandon Duhaime, had career years under Spencer Carberry. It's because he is such a great communicator. Guys always know where they stand with him, and that just matters so much. So, look, Alex Ovechkin, obviously the big story of 2025, but he didn't get to the finish line alone. Having the supporting cast that he did really helped, and I believe Ovi's pursuit also helped his supporting cast elevate their games.
You bring up a good point there because this season you had two new guys. You had Justin Sordiff and Declan Chisholm to fit right into this mix. But you go back to the 2024 offseason and it was 7 different guys.
It's a 30-year roster
that came into this locker room.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it can maybe sound cliche with how many times we say, oh, we love each other and the chemistry. But it seems like that chemistry and the way that all of those new guys were able to gel so quickly with the vets and the returners on this team really helped all of their success as a whole.
Yeah, it did, without a doubt. And look, I've covered this team now for 2 decades, and ever since the Alex Ovechkin era really got off the ground, I'm talking about, he was a rookie in 05, 06, but I'm talking about like maybe 07, 08, the culture that was built with Alex and with John Carlson and so many other key players. You talk to guys who come to the Capitals as free agents or in a trade, everyone to a man talks about how quickly they just felt at home, how Alex reached out to them. As soon as Alex hears that a player got traded or signed, he texts them right away. And, it just feels like a family. And again, when you have success over the number of years that this franchise, especially during the Ovi era, has had, it's because you have strong culture, and that begins at the top. They've changed coaches, but you know who they haven't changed? Captains. Alex Ovechkin has been the rock all of those years.
Leading the way, well, a long list of players who had those career years. So, Tarek, when you think to all of it, who was maybe one guy on that list that surprised you to have a breakout?
I would say Alexei Protas, who saw that coming, 6 goals to 30 goals. That was massive. Connor McMichael also took a big step up. But, I'm looking at my notes here. You said a dozen players, but the key players, they were so important. Anyone setting a career high is a big deal, third and fourth liners. But when the key guys, Dylan Strome, Pierre-Luc Dubois, added another dimension to his game, becoming a shutdown center, by the end of the year, he wanted to face Connor McDavid, head to head. Logan Thompson, that's another guy, not a skater, not one of the dozen skaters. You set a career high in wins. But look, we know in this league, if you're going to have any sort of success, you got to have a number 1 goalie who can carry the load. And so for me, when I think about all of the great things that happened to this franchise in 2025, Alex Ovechkin obviously at the top, the other guys having career years, Logan Thompson becoming the number 1, seizing the reins and saying, this is my team, I can lead you guys to where you want to go. That is such a big thing in the NHL. It's almost like having a quarterback in football. If you don't have a quarterback, you're just searching. You're like in the wilderness. In the NHL, if you don't have a good number 1 goalie, you're limited as to how far you're going to get, because you need that guy to not only be hot in the playoffs, but to be really good in the regular season as well. So, I would say my number 1 guy would be Protas. I would say McMichael would be my second, and then Logan Thompson, a close third with McMichael.
Well, they had the goaltending, they had the goal scoring in 2025, but also guys like Brandon Duhaime, Nick Dowd, they're on this list for career years last season as well. Names we don't mention as much when we are talking about maybe that offensive production, but that fourth line, gritty line, everything that they contribute, the physicality to this team, the PKing. When you have those guys having career years and being able to feed off of one another, how much does that help this team even more?
Yeah, depth scoring matters so much. You can always count on Alex Ovechkin to have a primary assist or a goal. But look, over the course of 82 games, guys are going to go dry. They're going to be playing through injuries. They're not going to score, at the same rate they had been before. So when you can get those guys at the bottom of the lineup, and I say that with all due respect, I'm talking about third liners and fourth liners. When those guys are producing, Nick Dowd, always in double-digit goals. We talk about him as a fourth line center. On most teams, he'd be the third line center, given his matchups and given his production. But yeah, when you can get a Brandon Duhaime and you can get, a Nick Dowd scoring a lot of goals and helping you out offensively, that just takes a lot of pressure off the top guys who, a lot of times those top guys are going head to head with the other team's top guys. So you need that depth scoring. So again, I've never covered a Capitals team that had a dozen skaters set career highs in the single year. That's unheard of. It's unbelievable.
Many milestones last season, but none greater than the Great 8 chase. Alex Ovechkin hit 895 April 6th. Everybody remembers it on Long Island at UBS Arena. And Tarek, for you personally, how cool was it? Like you said, you're a DC native. You've covered this team a long time. You were working for TNT that night, and you had the opportunity to interview him mid-game. Was that something? How were you even prepping? Was it something you just black out and whatever comes out, comes out?
It was an out-of-body experience because I knew there was a decent chance he was going to do it. You know, the previous game he got, 893 and 894, and that was really cool to see that at home. Everyone thought, okay, there's a pretty good chance he's going to be able to do it against the Islanders, but who knows? You know, Wayne Gretzky's in the house. You know, other dignitaries were in the house. There was just so much going on that game, and because again I was working the TNT sidelines, I actually was under the building because I knew I had to be ready to do an interview as soon as he came off. Alex Ovechkin was not going to be waiting for me. So I was down there. And so I really got a really cool behind the scenes of that goal. So I'm watching on this little monitor as I'm standing in front of the TNT set, and he scores the goal, and just you could hear mayhem's happening. I run down the tunnel to like the Capitals bench. The players have all spilled out. Now I'm like, wait a minute. I'm pretty much on the Caps bench as this is happening. I took my phone out and I'm just kind of I'm just doing this and just kind of soaking in the entire moment. And then for me, Katie, the coolest thing was the goal puck. It came down the hallway, and Brock Miles, the longtime equipment manager for the Capitals, he's holding it, and there's a guy coming out to put like a hologram sticker on it and kind of photograph it and make sure that's the puck, right? Because that's obviously a very important puck. I was like, can I touch it? They were like, go ahead. So I touched it first. I was like, oh my God, I just touched history. And then 2 minutes later, they're going, hey, get back to your set. Ovi's coming to talk. I'm like, so I had to run back and get ready to do an interview. And I can't remember what my first question was. I think it was something along the lines of, all-time leading goal scorer. How does that sound? Kind of your, boilerplate question.
Of course.
And Alex just gave me the greatest answer. So it was really cool. Something I'll never forget. The only thing I wish was that there was some way to actually be in the bowl and to see it happen, because I was again underneath, but no complaints.
The bird's eye view from the press box, and I set my phone up too when I knew we were going on the power play, because I figured if there's a time to do it, it's probably going to be then. But that day, one for history, an incredible day. But when you think big picture, going back to last season, training camp, he's over 40 goals away from it. You have all of the outside media, everyone giving their opinion. Is he gonna do it? I don't think he is, all these.
And then he breaks his leg.
And then to just add to the story, in the moment, it was terrible, breaks his leg in Utah. Now you're thinking, oh my goodness.
And he was hot too, remember?
Oh, big time, just coming off a hat trick. But I think looking back, it almost makes the story that much sweeter, because he breaks the leg, he misses, comes back way sooner than
it was like 4 to 6, and he came back exactly at 4 or something like that.
And everyone's talking about the freaking nature that he is, just with the healing process of the injury. And he comes back and he doesn't miss a beat. It was so much fun to watch the pace at which he's doing this too.
If I remember correctly, he scored in the first game of 2025, scored in the second game of 2025, and then just never looked back. It was just 100 miles an hour to April 6th. A couple dozen goals, sliding on his stomach and celebrating something I will never forget. And look, as a recovering journalist, I will tell you this. I've been trained to never ask for an autograph of someone I cover. I've never asked Alex for an autograph in 21 years. But you know what? That credential from that game, at some point over the next few months, I'm going to be like, hey, Ovi, can you just write to Tarek, thanks for, whatever.
Hey,
and that's going to go right over my desk at home, because that's going to be the coolest thing to tell my grandkids about.
It was history for all of us. So incredible what he did. But again, we are so fortunate to be able to cover it here on a daily basis. And
then he scored 900,
And that's what I wanted to ask you about next, Tarek, was we have so much talk about 895 and last year, but he wasn't done. Here he comes this year, missed a little bit of training camp, of course, with an injury, but the milestones, the celebrations did not let up at any point, because we get into this season, he scores 900, and he's kept on going since.
Yeah, he scored 900 exactly how we thought he would, right? On a spinorama from the goal line. I've seen...
How did that even go in?
I don't know. I've seen probably, give or take, 800 of his 900 goals in person. I've never seen that. He just kind of the backhander kind of flipped it in. But again, look, the goal record was the big one, but 900, there's something about that just also feels a little special, because, there's two other guys that are in the 800s, Gretzky and Howe. There's no one in the 900s. And if you look at the guys who might, maybe, potentially have a chance at catching him, they're so far away. I'm talking about Austin Matthews and, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And yeah, you can mention the Sidney Crosbys, but those guys they don't have enough runway left. Like if anyone's going to do it, it'll be maybe Austin Matthews, but he's not available enough. And I don't know. I just think this is something that Alex is going to have for his entire life, and the Capitals are going to have for the remainder of the existence of the franchise, and we're going to be remembering it happening in 2025.
And not only did we get to witness 895 last season, but we did so in a season that was incredible for the Capitals. You have the laundry list of players who had career years. You have Alex Ovechkin making history, and the Capitals go on and they finish first in the Eastern Conference for the regular season, win a playoff series for the first time in 7 years.
Since they won it all, yeah.
And every coach, every player is going to say you're not satisfied with winning a round or 2 rounds. You're in and you want to win that Stanley Cup. But when you're breaking it down, big picture, maybe baby steps here, that was a lot of positives for Washington.
Yeah, a lot of positives. I mean, the fact that they were able to integrate 7 new players as quickly as they did, when you always want to win the Eastern Conference. I think there was a little of a mental hurdle there getting out of the first round. Carolina is a tough matchup for the Capitals. I mean, they were gutted, they were crushed. They thought they had a really special group and they were going to be playing for a long time, and alas, it didn't happen. That said, I think they learned some valuable lessons, and guess what? I was looking at the standings right before we came out here to set. The Caps are going to have to go through Carolina again. I mean, unless someone can take care of Carolina in the first round, like it's gonna be like Capitals Penguins were back in the 2010s. It's gonna be Capitals Carolina here for a number of years. So hopefully it was a learning lesson for them, but it really, in my opinion, didn't put a damper on 2025, which, again, 2018 will always be the standard for the franchise for obvious reasons, but to have a year like 2025, just 7 years later, it was pretty special.
And how loud was Bell Center playing Montreal in the first round?
Oh my God.
Incredible. Could not hear the producers, could not hear what was coming next. You and I, we had that conversation plenty in Montreal.
Again, I was working the TNT sidelines, and right before my first live hit for the first game up there, I had double earpieces in, and I was like, is someone talking to me? Like I can't hear you. I mean, it's the biggest building in the league. I think 22,000 fans, but they are also the loudest.
All on top of you.
Yeah, and I think they cranked the music a little bit more, and it's just, it's so loud.
It was an incredible experience to be there in person, get to cover it, but once again, as we go through all of these awards, it's only fitting that the cherry on top is head coach Spencer Carberry winning the Jack Adams Award last year, not only winning that last season, but the first coach to ever win Coach of the Year awards at the ECHL, AHL,
he's pretty good.
NHL levels.
Pretty good. We'll keep him.
I would say so. I'd say we want to keep him around a few more years or so, but no, you've gotten to know him very well. We have the pleasure of speaking with him almost every single practice and game day. What has made him so successful in his years with Washington?
Katie, I mentioned it at the top of the show. It's communication. I've covered, give or take 9 coaches in my career. And the coaches that have the most success, the guys who stay around a very long time, are the ones that are able to connect with their players, who lay out a way for them to get better. When they aren't in the lineup or they're struggling, they don't mess around and say, hey, if you do a little, they just are, look, you're not playing well right now, and here's how you fix it. That's what players want. They are very much a point and shoot type people. Like, don't give me a whole lot of information and stats. Just say, hey, things aren't going right now. Here's how you fix it. And he always has the time for everyone on the roster. They know that he's got their back. He's got their best interests at heart. And when you get that type of buy-in from your coach, that just matters so much. Again, it comes down to communications. I mean, his systems aren't bad either. I mean, look, he's able to get the D to be one of the highest scoring blue lines in the league. Every year he's been here, they score a lot of goals. Sure, the power play could be a little bit better from time to time, but for the most part, his communication skills and his X's and O's, and also, this is something that I've observed over the years that Carberry's been here, the togetherness of the staff, the coaching staff, that bleeds down to the players. They're all on the same page. They speak with the same voice. That just the fact that they get along so well, I feel like that trickles down to a locker room that's also very, very tight.
Well, I think all of us, not just us media, but the fans at home too, you get to see a small glimpse of that every time the Capitals win in the now famous post-game locker room speeches. There was a big one, the day off one, which I think was by far the funniest one that we have seen. A bunch of grown men.
Where were you when that happened? Were you outside the room?
No, I was still I was up doing
Okay.
the post-game show on radio.
So I was downstairs just outside the room. And I've never heard, outside of like 895 or like maybe the Stanley Cup, a crowd, like the players go that insane. And so it was funny, I turned to like the other reporters. We didn't even have to ask what happened. We were like, we know what happened.
We all
they
have
just
a
got
day
some
off.
time off.
Yes, absolutely. But again, it's something as silly as those videos. Yeah, you laugh for a minute or two, but
I love those videos.
I think that shows there's a bigger meaning to those in a sense of, okay, you get a small glimpse of inside the locker room. You can see them when they're in a good mood celebrating, but at the same time, going back to your communication and the way he has his players' backs, the way they trust him, it shows even deeper just how strong every relationship is in that room.
You know, he's also got an incredibly strong track record now. Like you said, he's won Coach of the Year at every single level he's been at. But also, when you're able to tell, and this is going to happen, you're going to see this unfold over the next few off seasons when they're bringing in new players. I mean, when you're trying to sell a player to Washington, look, great building, great location, history of winning. Oh, and by the way, we have a coach that every year takes half the team to the next level. You want to come here and get better, you want to come here to Washington because Spencer Carberry, whether your game needs a tweak or to be overhauled, he will fix you. And when you have that as your selling point, that really helps you out as a general manager.
Well, a lot of good news throughout the course of the season, and some of that would come when our phones would ding. We'd pull up Twitter, we'd see the notification that the Capitals just locked up a player long-term.
Yeah.
That happened several times last year.
It did.
Specifically, want to touch on Jacob Chychrun and Logan Thompson. 8-year deal for Chychrun, 6-year deal for Thompson last season. And I remember we were in Winnipeg when Chychrun signed his, and all of a sudden we go out for morning skate, and all the pranks on this team, there's a dollar bill taped to the back of his jersey. So, of course, the team loving it. Some of their favorites sticking around. But once again, those are two very important players that were brought in last season, and we see what they're doing now.
You know, Kate, I would say they are actually foundational players. When you talk about building a team, you need a number one D, you need a starting goaltender, and to get those guys locked up long term, again, when you go into free agency or you're looking to make a trade and you're trying to get someone to waive a no trade clause, you can now point at, look, we have the Coach of the Year. We still have Alex Ovechkin for now. We don't know what his future is going to hold. Oh, and by the way, all of our key players, they're signed long-term now, too. So it's not like you're coming here and within a year or two, the whole roster could be overhauled again. So again, getting and I say number one D for Chychrun. John Carlson still plays number one minutes to a certain extent, but eventually Chychrun is going to be that number one D. And then to have a starting goaltender who for 2 years now has been at or near the top in terms of goals saved above expected, all the analytics, but also the standard numbers, goals against average, save percentage. That just means so much to this franchise. And let's throw out Marty Farivari, also signed earlier in the year long term. So the foundation for this franchise, Katie, it looks really, really strong right now and strong for a number of years.
And we've seen that as we progress into now this season, the 2025-26 season, and the Capitals, maybe a little bit of a roller coaster to start, but they found their groove at one point. Jacob Chychrun, who we just mentioned, doing exactly what he did last year, maybe on pace for even more. And Logan Thompson, the way he's handled this clear-cut starter's role this year, he's taken on a lot of load, but he seemed to manage it very well.
He has played a lot of games, and also remember, Charlie Lindgren got banged up a little bit, and so take even a heavier load. But I'll tell you, Logan Thompson has been, in my opinion, to this point in the season, arguably the team's MVP. He has actually won games and kept them in position to win games that maybe where they didn't have their best, and that's what you need from your number one goaltender. Jacob Chychrun, I mean, he might actually finish first or second in terms of goals for a defenseman in a season. You think about Kevin Hatcher, 34 goals. Think about Mike Green, 31 goals. I mean, there's a pretty good chance that Chychrun's going to end up in that 34 to, maybe even 35. He might set that record. I mean, he's having an amazing season. What a player and what a dude, too. I really enjoy talking to Jacob.
So much fun to cover, and clearly the guys do, too. They have lots of nickname bands, other things I don't even know, but you can tell that he's a fan favorite in the locker room for his teammates as well.
A lot of personality. It's funny. I tease him now because typically on a game day, post-game locker room, they put the numbers on the board. If you score a goal, you can pretty much count on speaking to the media, which isn't a big deal, but it kind of delays your departure, delays you getting in the shower. And I teased Jacob. I was like, as long as you keep scoring, you're going to keep talking to you. He was like, hey, that's a good thing, right?
Exactly. It's good when we want to talk to them.
Yeah. So years ago, it was Ovi every night. Now it's almost Jacob Chychrun every night because he's scoring so many goals.
Well, on the lines of Chychrun, on the lines of Logan Thompson, and bring Tom Wilson into this mix.
Sure.
At the time of this taping, we do not yet know about the heavily anticipated Olympics coming up, who will be on Team Canada.
Yeah.
But throughout this last half of 2025, we have mentioned Team Canada in so many different episodes because in our minds, it is evident that Tom Wilson should be on that list, Logan Thompson should be on that list. Even Jacob Chychrun, his name was thrown in towards the end by several national media members that we were talking to. What have you seen out of the three of them and what we hope we'll see in a few days, their name on that list?
Well, here's what we know. Marty Fehervary is on Slovakia. That we know.
That's a given.
Unfortunately, I don't feel like John Carlson's going to have a spot on Team USA. I disagree with that decision based on actually how well he's playing right now and the fact that he could just bring so much in terms of leadership. But, hey, that's their decision. But Team Canada, I'll tell you, if Logan Thompson is not the starting goaltender for Team Canada, what are we doing? Tom Wilson having another great year. Again, what I like about Tom in the Olympics, you can't fight. And, there's not as much physicality in IIHF games. That said, whenever number 43 is on the ice, he makes the other team think twice about moving the puck behind the net, doing other things, because at 6'4", 230, if he hits you, it hurts. And you're right, Jacob Chychrun, I checked with some of my sources just a couple of days ago. He certainly is getting some interest. It'll be interesting to see if he makes that cut. But, after getting totally shut out for the Four Nations, not having a single capital on any of those rosters, it is so nice that when these teams, when the Olympics are being played in Milan, we are going to have some capitals to cheer for. That is so cool. I was joking with Chris Patrick the other day, the GM. I was like, what we got to do? We got to get Spencer Carberry on Team Canada staff, because if you look at the guys, the NHL teams that have so many players in the Olympics, it's because their GM is the GM of their team, or there's a coach on the staff. There's usually a connection. So somehow, Coach of the Year, why can't we get him on Team Canada?
Well, no matter what happens, it's great to see, like you said, unlike last year, see that credit is now being given to so many of these players that deserve it. But a lot to reflect on, a lot of success for the team, for these guys individually. But good news, it's going to keep coming because the future is bright for the Capitals.
It is.
We have to talk about Hershey, the guys and juniors, things like that. Andrew Crystal, Ilya Protas, we've seen around here now a time or two, visiting his big brother. He brought a whole carpool with him last time, all for Christmas. So he's leading Hershey goals and points right now. What are you seeing out of some of these prospects? Who's standing out that fans should keep an eye on?
Katie, we should probably talk about the World Juniors, too. The Capitals have 6 of their drafted prospects are in the World Junior Tournament. That's the best junior tournament in the world, and many of them are playing really well. Hopefully Cole Hudson will get back out there after suffering kind of a scary injury there for Team USA. But down in Hershey, man, the farm looks really good. And I think about how this franchise has made improvements, leaps and bounds in terms of their prospect pipeline. Just 2-3 years ago, they were bottom third in terms of what they had in the cupboard. And the reason for that is they were in win now mode, and they were trading high draft picks, and they were also winning, so they were drafting in the 20s, and they were trading young players to kind of get players that could help them right now. And they kind of changed that MO about 3 years ago, and they've been just steadily stocking that cupboard. And you talk about the players that are in the World Juniors, but down in Hershey, you got a couple of 20-year-olds that are 1-2 in terms of points. I'm talking about Ilya Protas and Andrew through Crystal, I mean, that's an older league. That's a professional league. These are guys who are in their first year professional, and they are leading the historic Hershey Bears, a team that is always in the mix for the Calder Cup. So, I mean, look, the future is incredibly bright for this franchise, and eventually they're going to start having to work these young players in. And I don't think we're that far away.
And even putting the stats aside for a second, when you look at them and you see Protus and Crystal out there, and then you see Protus bring his whole caravan of people to the Christmas practice, guys like Eric Smatejko and others, what does that say about not just the way they're performing on the ice down there, but the relationships that they're building now and how that is only going to excel the chemistry when they all get here together?
Yeah, you know, Katie, we've talked about this before, and again, not to keep telling people how old I am and how long I've covered this franchise, but when I think about the times where this franchise took a step forward, a lot of times that came from a group of prospects that was drafted kind of within 2 or 3 years of each other. They finished junior hockey together. They came to Hershey. They grew up. They went through the growing pains of learning how to figure out how to be a professional. And then they came up to the NHL and didn't play a ton, and their roles steadily grew. This franchise right now is positioned with a group down in Hershey and a couple of guys that are in junior that might jump over, might not spend a whole lot of time in Hershey. This group is eventually going to come up, and I'm talking about 4 or 5 guys at one time. And I'm not talking about third and fourth liners. I'm talking about guys who are going to carry the mail and carry the franchise on their shoulders. They are going to come up at the same time, and what that does is that puts everyone on the same schedule. So it just makes it so much easier when you're building a team to go, hey, that's our core right there. We have all these important players who are, let's say, 23 to 25, 26. Then you can kind of nibble around the edges and get the little pieces that you need to kind of get over the hump, but you need those guys who preferably grew up together at the AHL level, come to the NHL, and they just hit the ground running.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens with them. But Tarek, this has been a wonderful episode. Yeah, so much to reflect on. A lot of fun was had last year into this year. And of course, like we just said, the future is very bright. So Capitals fans, you have a lot to look forward to, not just the rest of this season, but in the years to come as well. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Rink Report at Home. We hope you have a wonderful start to 2026.